On today's show, the Shazam reviews are not as good as we were kind of hoping, but the Evil Dead Rises reactions are incredibly great. James Gunn finally confirms that he is indeed directing the new Superman Legacy film, and Ben Affleck is saying he's done, he's out, and he ain't directing anything by DC. That and a whole bunch more. The John Campea Show starts. Shazam! Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming from right here on my YouTube channel, brought to you in part by our friends at Mint Mobile. I am, of course, your host, John Campea, and it is an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day on this game day. Shazam comes out today. I'm a little bit excited about it, and we are so glad that you guys are joining us here today, and here's how today's show is going to go. We're going to break it down into two parts. The first half of the show, we're going to talk about some predetermined topics, and then the second part of the show, we're going to take the questions that you guys have sent in using our tip link. I had a few people request that we do that for the main show for a little bit, so we're going to just test it out for a little while, and all those of you who sent in those questions, we're going to get around to as many of those as we can a little bit later in the show. Joining me in here today, sitting over there, we got Ray Ora.
You're always laughing.
Still laughing at me. Sitting back there, Taylor Gonzalez, running the show, Jonathan Boyko, writer, director, producer, and I believe a producer of, I believe an Agent Cody Banks is celebrating an anniversary.
Yeah, it was 20 years ago this week.
20th anniversary of your produced film, Agent Cody Banks.
Agent
You are
Cody Banks.
a single card credited producer on it.
It's true. And Madonna's a producer, and she had to share a credit.
That's amazing. Look at that. I mean, that is, I think a lot of people, whenever it gets mentioned that you are one of the producers of Agent Cody Banks, still people go, wait, what? Like a lot of people don't realize
Both of
that.
them.
One and two.
I have to say the second one, John, I take no responsibility for.
And most importantly, guys, you guys are here. Thanks a lot for being here. So listen, we've got a whole bunch of stuff that we need to talk about, and we're going to come flying out of the gates with this. Now, of course, Shazam, Fury of the Gods officially opens today. I don't know if you can tell. I'm a little bit enthusiastic for it. I'm going to be going to see it. Me, Ray, Ann, we're going to go watch it a little bit later this afternoon.
Well, you and Ann are going to watch it. Ray's going to sleep.
Yeah. Well, I mean, good news. I forgot. The movie's actually at 3:00.
Oh.
So we're going to, you'll be.
Crap.
That's your nap time.
3 a.m.
So we're going to be going to go see that. And the first reactions came out and they were good. Like they weren't as good as the John Wick 4 first reactions, which came out like the day before it, but they were solid. They were good.
Yeah.
And that just makes me excited. Our own Taylor Gonzalez saw it. He really enjoyed it and liked it. Well, now the full reviews are out. And unfortunately, the reviews are not as strong as they were for the first Shazam. Now, I love the first Shazam film. Absolutely love it. I think it's got like a 90% critic rating or something in that neighborhood. It's really, really great first critic rating for that first film. This one is solid, but not nearly as good. You can go over my screen here. As we can see, with 72 reviews counted, it is still a fresh rating, but 64%, which of course means that out of all the critics who have seen it, the 72 that they've registered so far, 64% of them like the film, 36% of them do not. So it's still a clear majority like the film, but it's not being as well received as that first one. And this is bad news because this movie is already not tracking to do great opening weekend. Now, no surprise, the first one didn't do great at the box office either, and coming off of Black Adam, which also completely underperformed, but the tracking numbers have kept going down. Like initially, the first long distance tracking numbers was maybe like a $50 million opening weekend. Then when the real advanced tracking numbers came out, it was like, well, maybe 42, 43. Then went down to like 40. Now some outlets are saying 35, some saying 30, and maybe a little bit less. And the one thing that it was still kind of had maybe going for it was the fact that, well, the reviews. Well, wait, the reviews will come out, and maybe the reviews will come out and it'll really spur good word of mouth and more people will come out on opening weekend. Not so much. I mean, again, they're decent. These are decent to good. Ray, 64 is a decent to good, right? Once you get above 70, you start getting the great, but this is okay. Clear majority of them like him, but not nearly as good as the first one. And it's not high enough to generate that kind of last second buzz that may propel a lot of people to rush out and grab their tickets. That happens sometimes. So I'm still very excited about it. I don't care. I'm still excited about it. I cannot wait to go in and watch this movie again. I want to revisit these characters again, but there's no way to spin this. This isn't good news for the movie. Anyway, Rob, we know that the tracking for this movie has not been stellar.
Yeah.
I don't know that a 64 is going to hurt the tracking, but I don't think it's going to help their numbers. What do you make of this?
Well, I have to tell you, it's the lead up to this movie. I watch a lot of other people's YouTube channels and YouTube clips, and they usually have ads for upcoming movies. I've seen nary an ad for this film, John. I mean, like on YouTube as a platform, I would have thought there would be clips, there would be a scene, there's nothing. And I'm like, if I can't get excited by this movie in social media, how are other people? And I'm looking. How are people that aren't? How's that advertising dollar being spent where people that didn't know whether or not they were going to see this movie, allowing them to see a clip going, oh, let's go see that this weekend. And it's been weird to me, the lead up to this. There's no excitement. And I have to say, I'm actually more excited to see this movie now than I was after hearing some of the responses, like Taylor's response and other people's. Even Christian Harloff, who's on the show, obviously, he had positive things to say, and my excitement's actually gone up. I'll be curious to hear what you say. I can't decide. I might go see it tonight. I kind of want to see this movie now.
Apparently, there are going to be available seats. According to the tracking, I don't think you're going to have a hard time getting a seat if you go at the last second.
I feel bad.
I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Come on, this looks dope.
But
That does look dope.
I think that looks great. Like I wasn't big on the first couple of teasers and trailers they put out, but when they brought out the one where he was literally fighting the dragon and throwing through, I thought, like, okay, this is a great trailer. I'm excited about this trailer now. But you're right. Overall, the marketing campaign hasn't been good. A side note, since we're talking about Rotten Tomatoes, before I forget, there's a film out there that Taylor really, really likes called Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey.
Yeah.
And it has now, I believe, entered the 100 worst reviewed films on Rotten Tomatoes. I believe it has a 4%. So congratulations to Pooh, Blood and Honey for achieving that. And we'll see how it goes. Anyway, guys, the question is for you. What do you think about this? Listen, the reviews for Shazam 2 they're pretty good. They're all right. They're perfectly fine, but not good enough to bring up those tracking numbers. How do you think this is going to impact the opening weekend, if at all? Where do you think this movie's going to come in opening weekend? Do you see making the 30s, 40s, 50s, lower, higher? Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's stay on the train of reviews and reactions, shall we? There's a movie coming out that, I like a good horror movie, just like anybody else. A lot of horror fans, a lot of movie fans. But I'm not a horror film aficionado like a lot of people. I know you're really into horror films, Rob.
Yeah.
I know Taylor's really into horror films. Chris really is not. But man, I got to tell you, the trailers for Evil Dead Rise have been awesome. Like I've been watching these trailers and they just look incredible. And I've been getting I'm getting more excited for this horror movie than I have been for a lot of horror movies in a while. Like it just, the way they promote it, it just looks like it's going to thrill. The whole bit looks great. Well, I believe it was out South by Southwest. They just did some full screenings of it before its opening, and the reactions are now out. And the common phrase I've read amongst some other places are words like gore, total gore fest, most bloody thing I've ever seen, and a lot of kick ass. From Andrew J. Salazar writes, Evil Dead Rises carries Sam Raimi's spirit while still bringing fresh ideas to the table. The kills kick ass and is going to shock even the most dedicated fans. It's not as comedic as previous films and sticks to a harsher tone, making it stand out from the franchise. Kevin L. Lee writes, holy mother of hell, Evil Dead Rise is nasty and gnarly as fuck. It literally rips. Continues the style and tone of the 2013 remake while offering some neat twists. Lee Cronin is a directing force, but it's Lily Sullivan and Alyssa Sutherland who lead this carnage circus. I love that phrase.
Count me in, buddy.
A carnage circus. Paul Lee writes, Evil Dead Rise, it's been a minute since a total gore fest like this has popped in theaters. Claustrophobic, grimy, and mean as hell. This new entry is a crowd pleaser that gets straight to the violence. It will 100% make you wince in parts. That is some great makeup, by the way.
Yeah.
I love that. All right. Jeff Zhang writes, Mommies with the maggots now. Every single Evil Dead movie is a banger, and the tradition continues with Evil Dead Rise, a bond between sisters shredded by disgusting whirlwind of deadites, guts, and gore brought the entire house down at South by Southwest. Eric Vespi writes, Evil Dead Rise is rad. The tone falls somewhere between 2013 remake and Evil Dead 2. There's so much gore and even more child endangerment. Also, there's a nod to The Shining that had me applauding in my seat. Don't miss it. The last one we'll read here is from Murjani, who writes, Evil Dead Rise is the total smorgasbord of gore. Possession, laughs, and style you would come to expect. It's more adjacent to the 2013 remake, and I dug it. And they just went on and on. They just went on and on like that. Nasty, violent, gory, bloody as hell, kick-ass, with the odd smattering of funny in there as well, which is not what I gathered at all from. I didn't think, like, if you're going to do something in the spirit of Evil Dead, there should be a little bit of humor in there. But I didn't get that at all from the trailers. And I like the fact, because here's the thing. When you get something that's either really dead serious or really dead horrifying or whatever, when you mix up the palette a little bit by throwing in a laugh here or there, it just resets the meter for the next gore thing or dark thing or whatever that happens. Like when the filmmakers can just take you on a constant roller coaster. Look, they can take you up to a height, but if you just go up to the height on a roller coaster and you just stay on that the whole time, right there, just straight line and then dip. But you do this, and if they take you from these thrills and then a laugh and then whatever, it can create a thrilling experience. And everything that I'm reading here so far sounds like this is going to be a movie that lives up to the hype of the trailers. I loved everything I read in here. This is clearly something Chris Carr is never going to go watch. Anyway, Rob, you had a chance to check out and see the reactions to Evil Dead. What do you think about the reactions, and where's your anticipation level for this movie?
Dude, I'm so stoked for this movie. I mean, obviously, I saw the first film in the theater in 1981, and I worked on Army of Darkness 10 years later for an entire summer. I love this franchise. I thought the 2013 remake or reboot was great. Fede Alvarez's movie. I thought it was great. I can't wait to see this movie. This is right up my alley, and I love the fact that it's mean and nasty. That was what I loved about the first movie, and it pulled no punches. I think children today need movies like Evil Dead Rise to toughen them up because everyone else is so soft. I mean, kids need good gore fests.
Mm-hmm. Is it fair to say? Because there have been a lot of horror films that come out. And by the way, I mean like pure horror films. Like I don't consider Megan, which is a movie I really enjoyed. I don't consider that a straight horror film.
I know
right?
what you mean. I know exactly what you mean.
It's been a while, I think, since I've seen a straight horror film come out that you can really tell they straight up made this for horror fans, right? And everything that I've seen coming out about this, and correct me if I'm wrong, this was one of the films that the previous ownership of Warner Brothers wanted to send direct to streaming, correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And it was the new ownership of Warner Brothers said, this thing's got to be in theaters. And it sounds like the experience will not disappoint.
Oh, yeah.
I'm very excited. Listen, Taylor, you're a big horror fan. You looking forward to this one?
Yeah, I'm so pissed. About a year ago, I was invited to a test screening of this.
A year ago?
Yeah, and I almost was able to go, but I forgot what it was. It had to have been something really important. I missed out, and I'm pissed because I could have seen this a year ago. And I am dying to see this. If I'm ever on Real Housewives, my tagline is going to be Mommies with the maggots now. And I'm going to sip my champagne. I can't wait for this movie.
You know what? Not only is that a great line, it's the way she delivers the line in that trailer. Mommies with the maggots. I like just the way she says it.
Oh, it's the best.
Oh, everything about these trailers has been great. Anyway, guys, question is for you. What do you think about the reactions coming out of South by Southwest for Evil Dead Rise? Maybe you're not a horror fan. Have you been looking forward to this movie? Where's your anticipation level right now? Whatever you guys think, jump down into the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's now move on to our Mint Mobile hotline question of the day. If you guys have a question for the show and you'd like to hear your voice on our show, go ahead and call our hotline number at 951-268 4259. Leave your message there and you just might hear it on the show. And the first one's talking about some whispers going around that we might see Luke Cage in the new Daredevil series. Check it out.
Hey, John and crew, this is Scal from North Carolina. I don't know if you guys saw, but there's a set photo of Daredevil Born Again taking place in Harlem. But my question is, what do you think the chances are that Luke Cage does pop up in the show, whether it's Mike Coulter or not? And besides Punisher, do you think there's any chance we could see any other Defenders in the show? Thanks, and bring on the filthy.
All right, man. Thanks a lot for calling that in. And yeah, listen, I was started going through some of my messages and some people saying, hey, did you hear that Luke Cage may be in the Daredevil series? I'm like, well, what from based on what? And I started looking around. I didn't see anything. Okay, so here's what happens. So if you are one of those people, and probably a lot of you are, who have been hearing these whispers that Luke Cage may be popping up in Daredevil Born Again, the new Disney Plus series coming up. You don't know where it comes from. Here's where it comes from. There was a post put up on social media of a picture taken in Harlem where this is pretty standard. We see these around Los Angeles all the time. These basically notifications that shootings are going to be going on, film shoots with, you can't park here because we got film shooting happening. This one says for the project name Out of the Kitchen. Now, Out of the Kitchen is the code name. It's the working title name of Daredevil Born Again. So they were going to be doing some shooting in Harlem down there. And who is a character that is closely associated with Harlem? Luke Cage. So literally these whispers and stories about that Luke Cage may be popping up in Daredevil all come from the fact that it appears they're at least shooting some stuff, some footage in Harlem. Now, a couple of sites, including CBR, this is CBR site right here, very accurately point out that there's two things to keep in mind. Just because Daredevil, who lives very close to Harlem, some of Daredevil is shot in Harlem, that does not necessarily mean Luke Cage is going to be in it. Any more than Spider-Man lives in the neighborhood too, doesn't mean Spider-Man's going to show up. But the other thing was, just because they are physically shooting in Harlem, that does not mean in the show it's supposed to be Harlem. So look, does any of that mean that there's no chance that Luke Cage, Mike Coulter, probably one of the 10 best looking men alive. I mean, I feel a little insecure looking at that dude. That's a handsome man. Anyway, that Mike Coulter, it doesn't mean that Mike Coulter, there's no chance Mike Coulter could show up in Daredevil. It doesn't mean that at all. But there being a picture of them shooting some stuff in real life Harlem does not necessarily equate that Mike Coulter is going to be popping up in the series. And I would go so far as to say this, Rob. Even though we have John Bernthal coming back, obviously now we don't have the same Vanessa coming back. We don't have the same Karen coming back. We don't have the same Foggy coming back, whatever. I would propose this. I don't know that they would bring the Luke Cage character back because I think it's safe to say, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's safe to say that out of the Netflix universe that they did, Daredevil and John Bernthal's Punisher were the two most popular characters, along with Vincent D'Onofrio's Kingpin, obviously. I really liked the first half of season 1 of Luke Cage, like really liked it. But once Cottonmouth wasn't on the show anymore, and I'm not saying it's because he wasn't there anymore. I'm just saying right about that time when Cottonmouth wasn't on the show anymore, the second half of season 1 of Luke Cage just didn't have the same magic I felt like the first one did, and I didn't like season 2, unfortunately. So I don't think they're going to bring him back. This picture online does not mean at all that he's coming back, although it also doesn't take away any chances that he theoretically could. After all, Bernthal's coming back. Rob, you saw the picture. What are the chances, do you think, that we could see Mike Coulter's Luke Cage pop up in Daredevil Born Again? And is this something you'd want to see?
Well, look, like you, I love Mike Coulter. I love him in the TV show Evil. I liked him in Plane, the Gerard Butler movie that just came out. I mean, I love him, but a shooting location doesn't mean anything about who's going to be in a show, as you astutely pointed out. Would I like to see him? I loved him as Luke Cage. I mean, if they're bringing back the Punisher and are they bringing back Jessica Jones?
No official word on that yet.
You know, and I just think, why not? I mean, these characters they're great characters. People like them. They already have a legacy in the Marvel universe, even though it's the Netflix version of it. I mean, with the spillover already of Daredevil into She-Hulk, I mean, I would love to see him come back. But I don't think this is just a filming location is no indication that he is coming back at all. Because like you said, it doesn't even have to play as Harlem. You know, they're just shooting there. It could be anywhere in New York. You know, they found a location manager, found a great place to shoot that served the story's needs for whatever was going on. I mean, they could say it's anywhere. It doesn't even have to be New York City, for instance. So I don't think that that's an indication that, I mean, like you said, the entire Marvel universe is set in New York City practically. Somebody has something going on there. So, I mean, are the Avengers going to be there? You might as well say they're going to be there too. Although we don't know who are in the Avengers anymore. So I would say this really isn't any indication of anything other than the fact they're shooting the show now.
Let me ask you, Jonathan, I don't know if you can bring that last picture you had up there of the Defenders, but you know, let me ask you this, when you have the Defenders, right? So you got Daredevil, you got Luke Cage, you got Iron Fist, you got Jessica Jones. That was on the show, right? Here's what I wanted. So John Bernthal's coming back. Obviously, Bernthal wasn't part of the Defenders, so there's that. We got John Berthal coming back. Vincent D'Onofrio's there. Let me ask you this: as you look at the Defenders, and obviously Daredevil it's his series, so Daredevil's going to be there. And we go down the rest of that line. We got Jessica Jones there, we got Iron Fist, and we've got Luke Cage. Out of those, who do you think is most likely to join Punisher and coming into the new Daredevil series?
I think Jessica Jones is.
You think she's got the best chance out of the rest of them?
Yeah. Because I only because her character is, in a way, more versatile in the sense that she's a counterpoint to she does a bunch of different things. She has a civilian life more than a superhero life, whereas Daredevil is a superhero or a lawyer all the time, where Jessica Jones, she could do a whole series and not use her powers. You could tell different kinds of stories, and I think it opens up the show. But if you bring Luke Cage in, it's more specific, if that makes any sense.
Right.
But I think Jessica Jones probably would be, but then obviously I don't think Finn Jones is going to come back. But you never know.
Well, see, that opens up a whole nother ball of wax, right? Like, because we've got a new Vanessa coming stuff. I mean, it's theoretically possible they could bring in a Luke Cage, but not Mike Coulter. It's possible they could try Iron Fist again, but not Finn Jones. I mean, maybe they want to do Heroes for Hire, but I mean, look, does anybody let me throw a statement out there to everybody watching. Let me know if you disagree with the statement. Out of the Defenders, the least likely to come back is probably Iron Fist. Does anybody disagree with that? I think we all agree. So if they wanted to take another crack at maybe Heroes for Hire and stuff like that, maybe like Vanessa or whatever, they recast the roles, bring a new one. I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of possibilities there. Question is for you guys. What do you think about this? I mean, they're shooting some of Daredevil in Harlem. Do you think that means that Luke Cage will be there? Maybe you're like, it doesn't mean anything. Do you want to see Luke Cage played by Mike Coulter? Do you think maybe they'll recast it? What about the other Defenders? Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, and before we continue, we're going to take just a second here to thank a couple of the sponsors of our show here today, our friends at MasterClass and Manscaped. We want to thank a sponsor of this video, MasterClass. MasterClass offers classes on a wide variety of topics, all taught by world-class instructors at the very top of their fields. Each class is broken out into individual video lessons, usually around 10 minutes long. And MasterClass is completely accessible on your phone, the web, smart TV, and available via audio mode to listen to classes on the go. They have over 2,500 video lessons from over 180 of today's most brilliant minds. They're all available anytime, anywhere on iOS, Android, desktop, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, and Roku. Now, obviously around here on the John Campea Show, we love our movies, so why not learn filmmaking from Jodie Foster, or maybe directing from Ron Howard himself, or the great Neil Gaiman doing his class on the art of storytelling. And you guys have heard me talk about my favorite class, Business Strategy and Leadership by Big Papa Iger himself, Bob Iger, the new and returning CEO of Disney. So guys, I highly recommend that you check it out. Get unlimited access to every class, and as a John Campea Show listener, you get 15% off an annual membership. Just go to masterclass.com/Campea now. That's masterclass.com/Campea for 15% off Masterclass. Hey guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of today's video, Manscaped. Breaking news, Manscaped now sells beard products. That's right, they are once again revolutionizing men's grooming with the brand new Beard Hedger Pro Kit. Now you can finally use Manscaped products to make your drapes match your carpet by going to manscaped.com and using the code Campea for 20% off and free shipping. It all starts with the Beard Hedger. This thing is a juggernaut of fixing faces. First off, this cordless trimmer has a rotary wheel that gives you 20 hair cutting lengths, all with one guard. So no more messy drawers full of extra add-ons. You also get the beard shampoo and conditioner. Because guys, you gotta remember that all of your hair is different. Your beard hair is more coarse and easier to damage than the hair on your head. Next, the kit has Manscaped's beard oil. The oil relieves dryness both on the beard and the skin beneath. You then cap it off with the Beard Balm that shapes, styles, moisturizes, and tames for a sculpted look. The Pro Beard Kit also comes with 3 special gifts: a beard brush, comb, and scissors to ensure your beard is ready to impress. With a nice beard, your face is perfectly groomed, right? Wrong. You need to keep an eye out for those tough to trim ear and nose hairs. The brand new Weed Whacker 2.0 offers improved blades and skin-safe technology with a no-tugging guarantee. It's never been so painless to mind your manholes. And now that you have your face looking great, you must try Manscaped's Performance Package 4.0 for the full body grooming experience. And good news, the Performance Package 4.0 now comes with the Weed Whacker 2.0 and all of the other below-the-waist grooming products that Manscaped is known for. Your significant other will be delighted to see you covering all bases, if you know what I mean. So get 20% off and free shipping with the code Campea at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com and use the code Campea. Manscaped Beard Hedger, 1 stroke, 1 guard, 20 lengths. And thank you to our friends at MasterClass and Manscaped for keeping everything neat, tidy, clean, shaven, and clear calls. I see I put those together. Hey, listen, remember guys, when you support our sponsors and go and check them out, you're actually supporting us. So if you look down in the description of this video, you'll find links and promo codes to all of today's sponsors. And thank you again to MasterClass and Manscaped. All right, guys. With that down, let's go back over to our Mint Mobile, who are now, I guess, pretty soon will be owned by T-Mobile, but they're still going to be operating independently, whatever. I don't know. Reynolds is going to have to tell me how that's going on. Let's go back over to our Mint Mobile hotline today because we got another question about, does Batman have shared rights? It's an interesting question. Check it out.
Hi, John. This is Daniel from Arkansas. I read a CBR article that says that Robert Pattinson is going to appear as Bruce Wayne, but not as Batman because of some rights issue with Fox and Disney. I'm confused about this because I thought like Warner Brothers has the Batman rights. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Thanks, and bring on the filthy.
All right, Daniel, thanks a lot for calling that in. And yeah, there's been some people wondering because there's a question going around about whispers over the years that Warner Brothers has not been allowed to have a live action Batman on screen. You have to correct me if I'm wrong, because I did not watch I've watched a little bit of Teen Titans season 2. I kind of tapped out on the show, not Teen Titans, Titans. I tapped out after season 1, but I remember they brought in the guy from Game of Thrones to be Bruce Wayne. But I don't believe you ever saw him as Batman. People who watched season 2 of Titans might be able to tell me differently. Back in Gotham, you never actually saw Batman. There might have been like some little thing in the final shot of the series. So there's been some speculation that Warner Brothers has not been allowed to use. Now, this comes from the fact that way back in the day, going back to the late 60s, so before my time, but that once Warner Brothers kind of got a hold of the rights of Batman, There was one exception, and that was the Adam West Batman TV series. And that the image and likeness and all that kind of stuff did not transfer with it. Now, this comes to us from the folks over at CBR when they write the following. This is interesting. Kinney National Service, Inc. purchased DC Comics, then known as National Periodical Publications, in the late 1960s, along with Warner Brothers, effectively becoming Warner Communications by 1972. This purchase helped secure the TV and film distribution rights to the vast library of DC characters, except for one thing. The 1960s Batman TV series starring Adam West, which was produced by 20th Century Fox before the Warner deal happened. In 2009, Warner Brothers entered into talks with Fox, the estate of Adam West, and other parties for the rights to the character from the 1960s Batman publication, the actor's likeness and future of the Bat on TV, according to Variety. The result is likely why Gotham aired on the Fox network during its run. Still, Batman never appeared except for the final shot of the show, something that was justified as a creative decision. Now, so basically, this whole thing going back to those days was that there was still this confusion, complication. And the word is right now is that Robert Pattinson will be appearing in the upcoming Penguin series on HBO Max, which, by the way, I am so excited for that Penguin series. Colin Farrell as Penguin was just chef's kiss. I loved him in that. I love the world of Gotham that Matt Reeves created to get back into the criminal underbelly of it. Very excited. And there's been talk that Robert Pattinson would appear in the show, but not as Batman, as Bruce Wayne, which I like because this is supposed to be a Penguin series. Keep the focus on Penguin. So have Bruce Wayne show up and maybe not a Batman. But that has gotten a lot of people saying that, well, the reason he can't appear as Batman is because a live action Batman can't appear on TV, at least not by Warner Brothers. And that's why they've always tiptoed around it. Now, this was also talked about on Twitter. There's a site followed by a bunch of people called The Art of Batman, and we can go over and check this out. And they put out a tweet that said, Robert Pattinson might not appear as Batman in the Penguin series, but can still appear as Bruce Wayne or the Drifter. The TV rights for Batman are caught up in a legal limbo involving Fox, Disney, and a trio of mergers. Okay. So, and they're not the only ones talking about this. So the kind of narrative that was starting to go around is that Pattinson will appear in the show, but it will not be as Batman because their TV rights are still caught up in limbo. Are the TV rights, in fact, still caught up in limbo? Well, as he is off to do, James Gunn decided to reply to that and simply said, this is not true. He also put out another tweet that basically said, the rumors about TV rights still being in flux are not true. As a matter of fact, I think I've got his actual tweet. Yeah, the rights issue he then specified is not true. So apparently the rights issues has been settled. Okay. So if James Gunn has now shot down the rumor that Pattinson can't appear as Batman on TV, then why not? Why not do Batman? I think there are two reasons you don't have Batman on the Penguin series. Number one, as I already mentioned, I think you want to keep your focus on Penguin. It's Penguin show. Make it a Penguin show. But number two is something that DC used to believe back before 2010, which was characters like Superman and Batman are your most precious commodities. You should not dilute them by having them pop up all over the place. But I'll tell you what, the Superman character has been kind of diluted a little bit. How many Supermen are there running around? And I kind of wonder, and there's been a criticism about even modern DC that there's too much of a reliance on Batman. So number one, I think you want to keep the focus on Penguin. Number two, I think, listen, let's not dilute Batman. Let's have him like fine china. You take it out for when the big guests come over. You take it out for the feature films and all that. And sure, still keep him in the animated world, but you do it that way. So that's my take on it. Rob, you saw this whole drama. I mean, the questions and the discussions about who owns the television rights for Batman have been around a long time. Apparently, James Gunn addressed it. What's your take on all this?
Well, I mean, it seems plausible because, they made a feature film of the Adam West Batman as well.
Did that ever play theatrically? Did that play theatrically?
It was a theatrical
feature. It did. I always saw it on TV. I never knew if it was in theaters.
Yeah, it was a theatrical feature, theatrically released feature. And then there's the TV show. So I could believe that that might have been the case. I mean, if James Gunn says that's simply not true, I would tend to agree with him only because he has no reason to hide that. It's an interesting take. I mean, I just think that they don't, the Batman franchise theatrically is very lucrative. And I think the idea of not Superman has been less so. There's been a lot more Batman movies. The Christopher Nolan movies proved that Batman is $1 billion franchise. It can be. Just because Robert Pattinson's didn't make $1 billion doesn't mean that the franchise isn't worth that. So I think by putting him on TV, it does kind of dilute that brand, and that makes more sense to me. But I would imagine that they fixed these issues. I mean, why would they? Because why would you be able to show Bruce Wayne and not Batman? I mean, how are they different? I mean, obviously the iconography is different, but technically, if you show Bruce Wayne, you are showing Batman, aren't you? Because it's just, I mean,
it could be one of those same fine lines that, like, okay, they can't make a Hulk movie, but they can still have Hulk in other people's movies. Like, maybe it's one of
they
those
just can't
blurry
distribute
lines.
a Hulk
They can't
movie.
they can't distribute a Hulk movie, but you can still use Hulk in other people's movies and distribute those movies. So maybe it's like a blurry line.
It could be like that, but I've just never heard of that before until now. But I think it's more along the lines of Batman has been, he's a prestige animated character, and Batman is a $1 billion live action character as well. And like you said, I mean, how many times are they going to make Superman shows? And there has yet to be $1 billion Superman movie.
It's true. Let me ask you this. In this report, it should be made clear that nobody officially is saying that Robert Pattinson will not appear as Batman.
Right.
That's just what everybody's speculating. Let me ask you, like, the assumption here seems to be that Pattinson will show up, which also, by the way, we don't know 100% is true or not. The assumption is Robert Pattinson will show up in the Penguin, but only as Bruce Wayne. And we've been sitting here discussing and debating about why he'll appear as Bruce Wayne and not Batman. But what do you think the chances are that we could see him pop up that we could see the Dark Knight in the Penguin series?
You know what? It wouldn't surprise me only because it's for HBO. And if it was a network show, I'd say no way. But with HBO being the prestige channel that it is, it could very well happen. I could see it happen, but not if it was on network television.
I mean, it's along the lines of Disney Plus, right? And their Marvel characters. So I don't see why HBO Max couldn't do the same thing for DCU.
But again, they haven't been putting their big Marvel characters on the Disney Plus shows, right? We haven't seen Spider-Man show up in a Disney Plus show. We haven't seen Thor show up in a Disney Plus show. So I'm wondering what Warner Brothers and ultimately James Gunn and Peter Safran's strategy for that is going to be moving forward. I don't see any harm in having him pop up here and there, but I can understand the philosophy that you want to keep him rare. Because you increase his value that way.
But I mean, Penguin, Colin Farrell is a movie actor, Academy Award nominated, so the show does have a certain level of prestige.
That's true.
Out of the gate.
I thought even well before this article that that Bruce Wayne would appear in this, because I think he's going to be dealing with the fallout with that fund, and I think we're going to see now the difference of he kind of hid away the Bruce Wayne for like 2 years, that persona, just to be Batman only. And then he realized, wait, there's value of being Bruce Wayne to this city.
Right.
And restoring that fund.
Are we getting spoilers right now?
Well, okay,
from the
you
director
know what?
himself?
I'm sorry, I'm actually getting a call. I got to go.
Guys, the question is for you. What do you think about this whole notion about whether or not we're going to see him pop up in this show? Like, are we going to, if he does pop up in the show, by the way, bring up my screen for a second. Just now, just for total coincidence, bring up your shot. What do you think the chances are that we are indeed going to get Robert Pattinson? And do you think it'll just be as Bruce Wayne in the Penguin series? Do you think we might actually see him in the cowl in that one? Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to our next one here, shall we? Speaking about Superman. You know, they announced a while ago that James Gunn, Peter Safran said the first new film of the new DC was going to be Superman Legacy, and that James Gunn himself was going to write it. Now, there was no word that he was going to direct it. Peter Safran had made a comment that, I mean, hopefully we can convince James to direct it, but whatever. And I think a lot of us, including me, including I'm sure many of you, there was a lot of us who kind of went under the assumption that we believe James Gunn is going to ultimately direct this. I mean, he's got to be careful with his time. He is, of course, now the co-CEO of DC overall, and directing a film is a very time-intensive thing. But it has now been made official. James Gunn is indeed going to direct Superman Legacy, as reported by The Hollywood Reporter. It says the DC studio co-head is helming from his own script, with the film looking to cast a new Clark Kent. They wrote the following: James Gunn is officially making Superman Legacy his next directorial vehicle. Gunn has been writing the feature since before he became the co-head of DC Studios in November, and it was widely expected that he would direct, though it was unclear given his duties overseeing the expanding DC slate. Superman Legacy will be the first big screen feature of the Gunn-Safran era. Warner Brothers has the project dated for July 11th, 2025, so a little more than 2 years from now. All right. It's interesting because back when James Gunn got let go from Marvel and Disney, and all the studios came knocking on his door and they had lined up pitching him offers and stuff like that, the first one that Warner Brothers pitched to Gunn was, you can come and do anything you want. You can even do Superman. You want to do Superman? And at the time, James Gunn said no. At the time. And so it's kind of interesting now that his first new DC film under the new DC banner, obviously he's done a DC film with Suicide Squad, and of course he did Peacemaker on HBO, but the first DC film is going to be one directed by him. There's something appropriate about this, because we often talk, Rob, about TV shows, that TV shows will have a dozen directors per season, but who directs the pilot is supremely important, because the pilot is the episode that sets the tone of the show. It becomes the blueprint for what the show needs to be, that all the other directors need to kind of follow that blueprint. And it's kind of then appropriate that I think that James Gunn, as the head of DC, along with Peter Safran, as they introduce this brand new DC world, that he be the one to come out there and direct. And listen, he's already directed what I believe is the second best DC film, in Suicide Squad, even though I didn't do great at the box office, but there's a lot of asterisks with that. He's directed some of the best stuff in Marvel. I mean, it just kind of makes sense that he's the guy to do it. It's not surprising to hear it, Rob, but what do you make and what do you take away from the official announcement now that James Gunn is directing Superman Legacy?
Well, I've kind of been saying that he was going to do that since we first heard this news. And they're using this artwork like from Superman for All Seasons. And I mean, I love this idea. And I think, look, if you're James Gunn, who's been a fanboy his whole life, Superman is the character to direct. I mean, I understand Batman's cooler, but you pull off a Superman movie and it's one for the ages. And really, I mean, if you think about it, the first Christopher Reeve Superman movie, I mean, I like Superman 2, but it's not as classy as the original Superman, Richard Donner Superman movie. And Man of Steel, the two of those movies are, I think, terrific films. The Superman films, all the other Superman films, could use improvement. Gus Gorman skiing off the side of a building, in Superman 3.
Come on, that was
There's
great.
a computer, whatever. So I think that when you're starting a new DC universe, you have to lead with Superman. And it was that was going to happen. And James Gunn has proven at least twice, 4 times, I'm sure, with the Guardians of the Galaxy, if you include the holiday special. His movies show that he has an inherent understanding of storytelling. He's got a lot more credibility here. People are always saying, well, what does he know about a Superman movie? I'm like, the guy's been making movies now and writing scripts for 30 years. I think he's destined to do this. He knows this is not going to be a goofy movie. He has to make this movie. It's got to be a classic for the ages. And I think that's what he's written. And, listening to reading his tweet stream about his father yesterday.
Yeah, that was really nice.
It was really nice. And I'm thinking, if you imbue this movie with this, see, I know it was just a few tweets, but if you can get into this movie, the sentiment you were expressing on social media yesterday about your father, I think we're going to get something that's very special.
Rob, you've often pointed out, because you've liked a lot of the DC movies, as have I. I've liked all of them except for the Harley Quinn one. Not the TV show, the Birds of Prey movies, the only one I haven't liked. But you often point out that the one thing that's kind of been missing a little bit from the DC films, other than maybe James Gunn's offering, is you use the word joy.
Yes.
That maybe these movies have been missing a sense of joy. And when you think of the DC characters, and you look back to the Christopher Reeve films, which I don't believe they should use as their absolute blueprint, by the way, but there was always a sense of joy in those movies, even in Superman 2, even with drunk Superman, right? Do you think that James Gunn will be able to balance, because obviously he's been reading Superman for 40 years,
yes,
right? Do you think he's going to be able to balance bringing like that icon of Superman while also maintaining like joy in the movie as well? Do you think he can do that?
I absolutely do. And, I think back to a scene in the original Superman movie. I think it's Air Force One gets struck by lightning and Superman takes the place of the missing engine.
Which is impossible, but...
Which, yeah, it's not...
But and then one of the pilots goes, he looks out the window and he goes, now don't look. Just fly, and Superman gives the pilot the wave from where he's. That's what I mean by joy,
right?
That kind of fun, that kind of whimsy, puts a smile on your face. Or even when the cat burglar's crawling up the window on the outside of the building, and then Superman is
just right there,
standing right there. I mean, that's what I mean by everything. Superman can be really portentous and self-important and all that, but it's got to be fun too. And it's been missing that, but I don't mean necessarily like with
Krusty
Richard Pryor doing funny stuff or a computer getting Superman's tangled in wires.
Now wait a minute, that gave me nightmares as a kid.
Well, you know what I mean though. It's what I'm talking about is a field of dreams like joy.
Right.
One of my favorite scenes in all the original, and I never saw them when they were in the theaters, but it was afterwards on home video. But one of my favorite scenes from the original Superman movies, I think it was Superman 2. It might have been 3, but I'm thinking it was 2, when Lois and Clark are doing an investigative trip and they go to Niagara Falls.
That's 2.
It's 2. And they go into the honeymoon suite.
And the Donner cut is better of that part, but yeah.
And they go in there and just all the sexual innuendo and stuff. And the way Clark acts, Christopher Reeve, like I think that's the type of joy you're referring to, right?
I mean, it's because Superman is inherently kind of a Dudley Do-Right kind of a character, but it doesn't mean it can't be great. But, Superman 2, it's like, when I mean joy, too, I mean when he flies up to the window and he says, General, would you care to step outside? And then Terrence Stamp points his finger and flies out the window. It's got to be fun.
Yeah.
Not so, I mean, as much as we love Man of Steel, people are dying all the time in that movie. I mean, every battle in Smallville or Metropolis, people are dying. And sometimes there's got to be big action set pieces where no one's dying. They might die if Superman doesn't save them, but he saves them, and it's got to be, you got to have a smile on your face.
What's the moment? Everybody knows how much I love Man of Steel, which I believe is the best DC movie, but the moment that I fell in love with Man of Steel was very reminiscent of Superman 2. It's when the guy, Clark, is working as a waiter or something, or as a bar sweep thing in the restaurant, and the trucker, very reminiscent of Superman 2.
Yeah.
The trucker giving him crap, and he holds back, and when he steps outside and we see the guy's truck wrapped around the pole, I'm like, that's the moment I completely fell in love with that movie.
And some people, I've heard criticism of that scene too, where people go, but you wouldn't do that. That's too petty. And I'm like, but...
No. Ripping his head off would have been petty.
Right.
Channeling his frustration by tying his truck around a tree.
Teaching a douchebag a lesson.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was actually waiting for them to follow up on the homage to Superman 2 at the end of the film, that he would go back and find that trucker again. But I'm glad they didn't do it.
In that period, he wasn't Superman yet. He wasn't saving the
exactly.
world yet.
He didn't know who he was.
He was finding himself.
Yeah.
And even in Superman 2, Clark goes back and tunes that guy up.
Oh, yeah,
and
at the end.
I've been working out.
Yeah, I've been so good. Anyway, guys, the question is for you. It's now official. What we have all suspected, it's now signed, sealed, and delivered. James Gunn will be directing Superman Legacy as the first film of this new era of DC. I mean, I don't want to put any pressure on them, but it's fucking important. They better crush this.
I mean, dude, we talk about movies making that vaunted billion-dollar mark.
Right.
This has to be a billion-dollar movie.
See, I don't know that it has to be a bill. I think it's okay if it's not $1 billion film. What it has to do, though, is set the stage for the following films to maybe be $1 billion films.
Maybe.
Like, this thing has got to go over great with the audience and great with the critics. And if it does that, like, if everybody, like all the audiences lose their mind and the critics all agree, it's okay if a lot of people are still a little sour on DC and didn't go see it yet. But if that movie can go over with everybody and make $750, $800 million, I think they'll be singing. I think they'll be totally good because that will set up the future success.
I don't think anybody's had as much pressure being the studio head and the director of the movie.
No.
In Hollywood history, no one has had the kind of pressure James Gunn has.
No,
right
and you
now.
know what? Here's the thing. And everybody knows I'm a James Gunn fanboy, so take this with a grain of salt if you want. I don't give a crap. Most men would not walk into that grinder. Like, it's one thing to say, I'm going to write that movie, or it's one thing to say, I'm going to be the head of this thing, or it's one thing to say, I'm going to direct. The importance of this first film, like Gunn has basically said, I have the testicular fortitude that I'm willing to put myself right in the crosshairs. There will be nobody else for me to point fingers at to blame if this doesn't work. Because you can't blame it on the writing because I fucking wrote it. I can't blame it on the directing because I'm directing it. And you can't bloody well blame it on the studio because I am the damn studio.
Well, clearly
And
he manscapes.
he's willing to stand up there and say, you know what? It's all on me. And if it goes south, it's all on me. And most men would not have the testicular fortitude to put themselves in that position. Most people want to put themselves in a position where they have scapegoats that they can point at. And James Gunn is like, nope, this is completely on me. If this doesn't work, it's this guy's fault.
I'll tell you one thing, John. You know, I haven't wanted to jump in and do what I did on Superman Returns, where I stayed and shot. I was there on set every single day filming what went on to make that documentary. I would go back and do it for this because I'm so curious to watch this process.
Yeah, me too. All right, guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? James Gunn is directing Superman Legacy. Whatever you guys think about it, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to our final topic here today, shall we? And that one is this. Sticking with DC, you know, back when they made the announcements of all the stuff that was happening and they're going to be doing with DC, one of the things that James Gunn mentioned was that, listen, me and Peter Safran, we sat down with Ben, we explained where everything was going. He explained his situation to us, and we would love for him to direct a DC movie. It's just going to be a matter of finding the right project and all that kind of stuff. Gave people like me, who is a self-admitted complete Ben Affleck fanboy, Ben Affleck's Batman is my favorite Batman. I desperately wanted to see him direct a Batman film. I really did badly. But it made me like really excited for the future that at some point we could see Ben Affleck come in and actually direct a film for DC. Well, not a snowball's chance in hell, according to Ben Affleck. There is no way he's directing a film for DC. And more than that, there's no way you're going to see him do comic book stuff again either. There's a really, really good interview that the Hollywood Reporter has done with Ben Affleck, where all the headlines you see are coming from. And I thought it was important to read out some of the excerpts from that to really help us understand the mindset of Ben Affleck, where he's at, and why he's like, no, I'm out, never again. These are some of the quotes from Ben Affleck in that interview. And we'll go over to my screen here, where he says this. But I was going to direct a Batman, and Justice League made me go, I'm out. I never want to do any of this again. I'm not suited. That was the worst experience I've ever seen in a business which is full of some shitty experiences. He goes on to say, and I started to drink too much. I was back at the hotel in London. It was either that, drinking too much, or jump out the window. And I just thought, this isn't the life I want. My kids aren't here. I'm miserable. You want to go to work and find something interesting to hang on to rather than, get this, rather than just wearing a rubber suit, and most of it, you're just standing against the computer screen going, if this nuclear waste gets loose, well, that's fine. I don't want to condescend to that or put it down, but I got to a point where I found it creatively not satisfying. Also, just you're sweaty and exhausted. And I thought, I don't want to participate in this in any way. And I don't want to squander any more of my time, of which I have a limited amount. So, Ben, we'll get to the rest there in a second. So Ben is basically saying that, you know, the experience of making these films was miserable. And then he talked a little bit about like what happened after Zack Snyder also left, but it was clear. Like he talks about how, you know, all of a sudden Joss Whedon came in and magically he was supposed to fix everything and it just didn't, and all that kind of stuff. But he goes on, he just talks about, listen, this whole thing wasn't for me. I don't want to stand in a rubber suit going, if the nuclear waste gets out, he goes, this isn't for me. This isn't the life I want, all that kind of stuff. Well, after kind of laying that part out, the interviewer then asked Ben Affleck this. They said, so if DC came to you now and said, do you want to direct something, which is right in line with what James Gunn was talking about earlier? Ben shot it down. He said this, I would not direct something for the Gunn DC. Absolutely not. I have nothing against James Gunn. Nice guy. He's going to do a great job. I just wouldn't want to go in and direct in the way they're going to do that. I'm not interested in that. The Justice League experience, the fact that those stories became somewhat repetitive to me and less interesting. Yeah, I did finally figure out how to play Batman, and I nailed it in The Flash. For the 5 minutes I'm in there, it's really great. Okay, first of all, you understand how much I love Ben Affleck. I really like Ben Affleck a lot. But yeah, he just says, look, not interested. I'm not going there. I'm not going to do it. And that one quote of his, I'm out. I'm never doing this again. So, I mean, look, I'm not going to lie to you. It absolutely breaks my heart because more than most people, I have been dying to see. I mean, I pretty much came to peace that he probably wasn't going to direct a Batman movie. But to still see him enter that world, and I think he's one of the best directors out there today. I think he's top 15 best directors in the world right now. I really do. And I think his directorial resume backs that up. I can't wait to see Air, the Michael Jordan shoe story. I think it's going to be awesome. But I also, when he describes it like that, when he describes it, let's go back to my screen for just a second. Just then, what did he say? He said, you want to go to work and find something interesting to hang on to rather than just wearing a rubber suit. And most of it, you're just standing against a computer screen going, if this nuclear waste gets out, well, blah, blah. And then it just talked about how the movie just became repetitive. He didn't find anything creative, interesting in it and all that kind of stuff. And then he's talking about it like he was so miserable. He started drinking a bunch and, you know, how it just kind of ruined him. I get it. Your life comes first. And if he's realized, I remember we talked a story a few years ago about how Matt Damon even kind of told Affleck at some point, you got to get out of this stuff. And you know what? It was even the Hollywood Reporter that I don't know if you saw the story, Rob, like last week, the Hollywood Reporter basically put out this thing about why Ben Affleck should never go back to comic book movies. And it kind of sounds like maybe he's heeded that. So look, does it completely bum me out, the notion of not seeing Ben Affleck direct a DC movie? Absolutely does. Completely bums me out. But do I understand it? Yes. And by the way, I think he did a very good job of expressing how miserable he was and expressing why he does not want to do this sort of thing again, while also being careful to step in and say, hey, I'm not putting down the comic book genre. I'm not putting that down. I'm not trying to be condescending. It's just not for me. And I think he did a really good job of expressing both. So I, as a fan of his, came away not feeling at all like he was disrespecting the types of movies I love to watch, but at the same time doing a really good job of really expressing himself as to why you're not going to see him getting involved in stuff like this again. I thought, as always, Ben Affleck was super articulate. I love the way he put it, even though it leaves me being very sad. Anyway, Rob, you read you heard the comments, you read the article. You know, it kind of sucks, but how do you feel about it?
Well, you know, I think it goes back to this. Maybe people won't like me saying this, but you know, when filmmakers come out and talk about comic book movies, sort of not being real cinema.
Right.
I mean, comic book movies are a very specific kind of film, and we love them. And I grew up with comic books and all of that. But at the end of the day, there's only so many stories and so many things that you can address within the genre of comic book films, the way they're currently structured. And when you think about the movies that Ben Affleck makes, I mean, he won an Oscar for writing Good Will Hunting. And that is a movie that has profound resonance on many different levels. And I think when it comes to what cinema can do, once you've done your time making comic book movies, and I think if you're a director and a writer and an actor like Ben Affleck is, and he looks at his kids, he wants to make movies and tell stories that have the kind of resonance that a movie like Good Will Hunting does. And comic book movies don't really allow for that kind of thing, at least not in the way that a movie like that does. And I understand, I mean, when you are making these big effects-laden comic book films, as an actor and a storyteller, there is a lot of standing around waiting for the technical aspects to happen. And then the story that you're telling really doesn't allow you to emote. I keep thinking about the conversation that Robin Williams had with Matt Damon. You know, just that conversation when they're sitting on a bench.
It's not your fault.
You don't get a lot of that in a comic book movie. And I think what Ben Affleck wants to do is, in the time he's got left, he wants to make meaningful movies. And I'm not saying comic book movies aren't meaningful, but he wants to go back and make movies like Argo, which won Best Picture, or Good Will Hunting, or any number of Changing Lanes, the movie that you always cite that he's so good in.
I love that movie.
You know, I think that he's got, if you look at his filmography, he's got a really interesting filmography. And he's already been in the biggest, I mean, Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice, and Justice League, especially when you see Zack Snyder's cut, it doesn't get bigger than those movies. And he's done it. You know, and he's proud of his Batman character. He got to say goodbye in The Flash. And I think he's right. I think that he's made those movies and he can continue to make them, but he wants to do something else.
By the way, we never really touched on that one part where, I mean, I think nobody expected Ben Affleck to have a massive role in Flash. But the one kind of throwaway line in that whole thing was he said, yeah, I nailed Batman and Flash all of 5 minutes that I'm in it. So it sounds like it is like a very, very small part.
Right, although he could be using 5 minutes sort of euphemistically.
Or sure, it could be 3, could be 9.
But the way he played the character, I mean, that makes me more excited to see The Flash because, you know, I think everybody is talking about The Flash and has been saying it's so good because it deals with issues that traditional comic book movies don't get into, like the idea I wanted to keep this universe here because my mom is still here, you know, and that's when comic book movies have more resonance. And I think that I can't wait to see The Flash. I can't wait to see what Ben Affleck does in his career. And it seems like he's got his head really screwed on straight. And I'm excited to hopefully see the next thing he directs.
Yeah.
Which is Air.
And I think the trailer for Air with him and Matt Damon looks fantastic.
And can you imagine for him being a sports fan from Boston? That movie's got to have been a dream project for him.
I was reading an interview with Ben. He's saying, listen, he knows Michael Jordan. They've played some poker together. He said Jordan is an absolute hero of his. So he definitely talked to Michael Jordan. Yeah, I don't think Michael Jordan appears in the movie or anything like that, but I think this movie looks great, and I cannot wait to see Ben get back in the director's chair and whatever he's going to do next. Anyway, guys, question is for you. How do you feel about this? Maybe you're like me and you're a huge Ben Affleck fan and you were really looking forward to seeing him direct something in DC. Maybe you're not at all. Maybe you're bummed out like me. Maybe you don't understand. Maybe you're angry about this. I don't know. Whatever you guys think and however you guys feel, jump on down to the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, we're going to spend the rest of our time here today answering and responding to the questions that you, our viewers, have been sending into our tip line. And the way you people have been sending them in, and you can bring up that open mic graphic there. We've been collecting questions that people have been sending into the tip line at streamlabs.com/John Campea/tip. We had a few people ask, because we did it for open mic, saying, hey, you know what? I can't watch the John Campea Show live because I'm at work when you're doing it live. Can you give me the opportunity to send in? Well, for a couple of days, we're going to take it from there as well. So before we start answering those questions that you guys have already sent in, we're going to take another second here and thank one of the main sponsors of the John Campea Show, our friends at Mint Mobile. We want to take a second to thank a sponsor of this video, Mint Mobile. If saving more and spending less is one of your top goals for 2023, why are you still paying insane amounts of money every month for your phone bill? Switching to Mint Mobile is the easiest way to save this year. As the first company to sell premium wireless service online only, Mint Mobile lets you order from home and save a ton with phone plans starting at just $15 a month. You guys know I made the switch over to Mint Mobile a while ago. The process couldn't have been easier, and I can't believe that I am spending less than a third of what I was spending on one of the other major carriers before. By going online only and eliminating the traditional costs of retail, Mint Mobile passes the significant savings on to you. All plans come with unlimited talk, text, and high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and switch easily in minutes with eSIM. To get your new wireless plan for just $15 a month and get the plan shipped to your door free, go to mintmobile.com/Campea. That's mintmobile.com/Campea. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/Campea. And thank you to our partners at Mint Mobile for sponsoring this episode of the John Campea Show. All right, guys, let's get over to the questions you guys have been firing in now. Rob, what do we got up here first?
Alan S. says, "Hi, John. Love the show."
Oh, you know what? I already answered that one on
I thought you were
Open
saying
Mic
that's where
yesterday.
we
Yep.
start.
Okay, well, then we go to Benny S. "Finally, John Campea has come back to Stream Elements. Glad to be able to support you guys again. The Last of Us was incredible. I actually enjoyed it more than the game. Do you think there's any point in playing part 2 before season 2 comes out?"
It all depends on your own personal temperament. So, Rob, I think you might be different than me in this, because for me, if a movie is coming out that's based on a book, I then have a rule for myself: don't buy the book, because I want the movie. I want to be able to watch the movie and completely judge it purely on its own merits. Because when you read something first or experience something first, then you're watching the movie, you're comparing it to that, and if it doesn't live up, So me personally, if you had not played Last of Us 2 yet, I would say hold off until watching it. But Rob, you strike me as the type of guy who you will read the book first.
Yeah,
so I don't know. How would you answer him?
Well, it's only because for me, I like to compare and contrast things just to see. So but you know, if I know that a movie's coming out and it's based on a book, I don't necessarily run out and get the book. But if I know it's going to go into production, it depends what genre it is, really. Like if The Notebook was based on a book, I think it might have been, you're not going to get me to read that. I'll read Gone Girl, you know, but it depends. I think, though, that the thing is, The Last of Us games are such great gaming experiences. And I've only played the first game. I haven't played the second game. But, I mean, it really depends how much you like the show and how much you want to be surprised. If you want to preserve, if you love that show and you've never played the game, why start now?
All right, what's next?
Sasha says, "Hey, John or Rob, what are your thoughts regarding Marvel suing Reddit for script leaks from Ant-Man 3 and other Marvel spoilers?"
You know, there really wasn't much to cover as a story per se, but for those of you who missed it, Marvel I think they filed in court trying to compel Reddit to reveal who it was that published a bunch of pages from the script on Reddit from
Was
Ant-Man.
not me.
No, from Ant-Man, and who it originated from, because they know who reposted it and all that kind of stuff, but they want to know where it came from. And because there was an originator person who somebody who was authorized to have it, probably under an NDA, never to reveal it, and then while under that NDA took it and put it on there. There's two things. One, I don't blame Reddit at all for not releasing that information to Marvel. Two, I don't blame Marvel for trying to plug the leaks, because the leak is within their own boat, right? Whoever is putting that out, that's somebody in their own house. And they want to plug that leak of whoever's in their house putting that stuff out. So I don't blame them for going after it. I'm going to be very interested to see how the court rules on this. Whether or not Reddit gets actually compelled to release that information to them or not. I'm not sure how it's going to go. I'm not sure how the finer points of the laws here in the States work as far as that goes, but we'll find out. All right, what's next?
Jesse Has a Turtle says, "I saw a lot of people on Twitter arguing that explicit scenes aren't necessary for movies and tend to make them feel uncomfortable since they feel like the third person in the room. Curious what your thoughts are, and could this ever be a problem later on?
Here's the thing that I feel about something is only explicit, I believe, when it is unnecessary. I believe there is a lot of content that some would call explicit that is necessary. Here's a great example. If a filmmaker really wants you as the audience to feel something, remember, there's a difference between making the audience know something and making the audience feel something. If it's important to a story that we understand just how vile of a dirtbag a certain character is, some character in a throwaway line can say, "Oh, I even heard he abused his wife." Okay, now we know that. We know that, right? It's another thing for us to feel it. There's a scene in The Godfather, the original Godfather, where, the son-in-law decides to physically abuse Don Corleone's daughter, Sonny's sister. Not a good move to hit Sonny's sister, but at any rate. And it could have been one thing that Sonny just gets a call and says, "What? He hit you," and then he runs over. But it's another thing that we saw this dirtbag. And sometimes in movies, like whether it's a sex scene to let the audience actually feel a level of passion, or whether it's a gory scene to really instill a sense of shock, or whether sometimes I think good storytellers know when something explicit, whether it's explicit language, explicit violence, explicit sexuality, explicit whatever, they can be very good tools to instill an emotion in the audience. And then sometimes there's movies that just do it for the hell of it. And that to me is just explicit and it's pointless. But sometimes I think it's a very valuable tool. But Rob, it's only when it's in the hand of a skilled filmmaker who knows how to properly use the tool. But when it's used right, it's very effective. How would you respond to that?
I think that's very well put. I agree with you. I mean, I think back to one of my favorite thrillers of the 90s, which is Basic Instinct. It opens with a fairly explicit sex scene that ends in a murder. And that sequence sets up a mystery, but it also sets up titillation, and it shows you what you need to know about this character of Catherine Trammell. And it needs to be there. It sets the tone for the entire film. Now, there are other scenes in the movie, but after that, the sex scenes are more about suspense. Like, is Michael Douglas gonna get, once he's tied up, is she gonna kill him? And when it works, like you said, I think it works. If the filmmakers, if there are deft filmmakers and filmmaking going on, it can work. But I think you're right. Look, unless plot and story are being furthered or characterization is being furthered, unless you're learning something about what you're watching, it then becomes redundant. And it's not, it stops. It's like watching a really long special effects sequence. If it's just a special effects sequence that has no meaning, then you're not engaged by it.
All right. What's next?
Tron. Well, Tron. I didn't know Tron watched the show. After the next two Spider-Verse films, do you think Sony should or will bring Miles Morales to a live-action movie? And if so, will he be in the MCU or the Sonyverse?
I'm sorry, can you read that again? Sorry, I got distracted by an important message that came on my screen here.
After the next two Spider-Verse films, Tron asks, do you think Sony should or will bring Miles Morales into live action in a movie? And if so, will he be in the MCU or the Sonyverse?
I think remember we were talking a little bit earlier about Batman, and what Warner Brothers needs to try to do is to try to restrict or limit how watered down the character gets. I think Sony right now is experiencing wild success with Miles Morales in his animated films. Someday, eventually, there is going to be a live action Miles Morales. And I'm not talking about a quick cameo saying, I want to introduce you to my friend Miles. Like, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about like legitimately Miles Morales Spider-Man showing up. I don't think it's going to happen for a while. I think right now Sony's experiencing excellent success. They're winning Academy Awards with it. They're going to win the box office when the new one comes out. I don't think they're going to be in any rush to rush him into a live action thing. And I think when they do, they're going to keep him for themselves. I don't think they're going to let him pop up in the MCU. I don't know, Rob, what do you think about that?
I agree. I mean, I think that it's a logical extension, but I think they're going to play it safe. And they've got, obviously, they really like where these Miles Morales animated films are going. So why disrupt that right now? But I would imagine, I'll tell you one thing, John, it would not surprise me to see Miles Morales in Secret Wars.
Really?
It wouldn't surprise me.
All right. What's next?
Anonymous says, hello, John. How do you feel about, Shvenikov being out for the rest of the season? Does this end any hope for the Hurricanes?
It doesn't end the hope for the Hurricanes, but this dude is a 22-year-old stud. Plays winger on the. By the way, Hurricanes. It's NHL. It's hockey for my American friends. He's a stud. He's young. He's strong. He's skilled. But listen, they are a well-balanced team. So he's got. I think it's a torn ACL. It's a well-balanced team. I would not count them out, but it doesn't help. It doesn't help. All right, what's next?
Hitchcock is the GOAT. Says, it's interesting about the comments Bob Iger made about characters maybe shouldn't get a third or fourth movie and it should stop at 2. There would have been no Civil War or Ragnarok, and those are arguably amongst the 5 best Marvel films.
It's important to point out when Bob Iger was talking about that, he was not laying down a rule. He just said, maybe we need to look at it. Like, does this one need a third or fourth film? Now, of course, the irony of Bob Iger making those comments about a third and a fourth film is that those comments came right on the heels of him announcing Toy Story 5, Frozen 3, and a sequel to Zootopia. But I mean, so it was right on the heels of that. But again, I think a lot of people misinterpreted him. He was not saying, okay, new rule for Marvel, no third or fourth films. No, he just said, look, maybe we just need to look very carefully is, does this character actually warrant another film? And I think in the case of Captain America, they would have said absolutely yes. I think in the case of Thor, they would have said absolutely yes. So it's not a hard and fast rule. It's just a general thing. All right, what's next?
Charlie says, hey, John and crew, I've been watching since the Loki finale prediction with John in the pool.
Oh, wow.
What a way to be introduced to the channel. My question is, what are your guys' favorite music genre decade of music? I know that John likes U2. Thanks, and bring on the filthy.
Yeah, even though like I was really following music most in the mid to late 90s, early 2000s. And I was just a child in the 80s. But the 80s, even today, as I look back, I think the 80s is my personal favorite era of music, although there's a lot of great music today. I know, Rob, what about you?
Same with the 80s. I mean, that's when I really got into music. But as a kid, even in the 70s, like, I love bands like Styx and Foreigner and, those kind of things, and Led Zeppelin. And also in the 60s, I love when I was in junior high and high school, I got really into the Rolling Stones, the Beatles, and the Doors and things like that. But I would say the 80s only because it was happening and I was following it while it was going on. It was the music of my era.
All right. What's next?
Murray Reich says, finally got to see Operation Fortune, and I quite enjoyed it very much. A lot of humor and good action. Statham, Plaza, and Grant were big standouts. I always enjoyed Guy Ritchie action films, especially with Grant and Statham. I definitely recommend it.
I'll tell you what, I had fun with Operation Fortune. I said it might be my least favorite Guy Ritchie film, but I still had a good time watching it. And I'll tell you what, Hugh Grant is a scene stealer in that movie. He's fantastic in that movie. The movie ended and I was like, I would totally watch a spin-off movie with that character. But Jason Statham's great in it. I love Aubrey Plaza in it. Again, it's a little formulaic. It's sometimes the movie feels like they were making it up as they went along a little bit, but it was fun. I personally had a good time with it. All right, what's next?
BK Dan says, yeah, I missed getting it in for today, 3:14, but anyways late. Happy Pie Day.
Yeah, now obviously BK Dan sent this in sent it in late for the open mic that we did the other day. So I said, don't worry, we'll pick up right where we left off, and that's what we're doing now. All right, what's next?
Frantic says, with all the hype about Creed 3, I'm shocked that everyone forgot that the first Rocky won the Oscar for Best Picture. What is your opinion on the first Rocky film, Greetings from Germany?
Well, the first Rocky film it's fantastic. Mm-hmm. There's some reminiscence too of his other franchise, the Rambo franchise, where Like the first films happened in the Rambo franchise and the Rocky franchise. And then we got into the second film and they kind of went through a metamorphosis of a way. Because Rocky 2 is very different from Rocky 1. Rocky 3 is then really different from that. But
yeah,
I mean,
I think 2 can follow 1 fine, but I agree. 3
yeah,
is-
but it just feels like it's a very different film. And also you go from First Blood, which was the first Rambo film, into Rambo.
That's a big juxtaposition.
And there's a big shift in tone and all that kind of stuff. But I love the original Rocky movie. It's
I do too.
wonderful. It's fantastic. And it's kind of funny. And you could tell later in his career, especially in like Rocky Balboa, Creed and Creed 2, that Stallone was trying to kind of go back to that original Rocky character. I don't know. What do you think about it?
I totally agree. I mean, look, as I like the Rocky franchise a great deal, man. And you go back and you watch that one Rocky movie. You forget that he was like collecting money for the mob in that film, and it's a real slice of life film. But then it becomes a larger than life franchise. And by the time you get to Rocky 3 is wildly entertaining, but it's pretty far away from Rocky, the first film. But that's okay. I like the franchise.
But you get a great Adrian speech on the beach there.
Yeah.
All right, what's next?
This is BK Dan again. John, for when you retire, here's toward your Perma Zevia supply.
Thank you so much. I got Zevia in my cup right now. Appreciate that very much, my friend. All right, what's next?
Tommy Maynard said, John, big fan from Ireland since the AMC days. I think the channel has grown so much and made a rich community because of the panel. We love the panel. Please consider that we love the MTV vibe or the MT vibe. And it's been missed on YouTube and you've brought it back to us.
No, I have always succeeded wherever I've gone and whatever I've done, because I really do follow my gut. And by the way, what is right at one time will then require an adjustment later. Like you can make a certain decision on a Tuesday, and then next Thursday, a different decision might be the best thing. And I really kind of felt that I wanted to get away from the full panel feel. And listen, here's the other thing I got to mention. Whenever I make a change on the show, ever, this goes all the way back to AMC.
Jonathan has to make it so.
Yeah, Jonathan has to give me approval, number one. Number two is whenever I have made any change on any of my shows, it is always met respectfully. It's always met respectfully by our viewers with a lot of resistance. Like a lot of resistance. But then later, when I change the change, it's met with a lot of, no, make it the way you just did it. But it's like, but 6 months ago when I made it that way, you hated it. But that's what happens. And in the online, Dennis and I used to talk about this all the time. I remember one time we even changed the color of the wall behind us once, and we got like 1,000 emails about how people didn't like it. But yeah, I feel that the best approach right now for this show is having 2 people as opposed to 3. And predictably, I remember I was talking to Anna. I said, as soon as I do this, it's going to be met with a lot of resistance, and which she reminded me, everybody always resists every time you make a change. And then when I change it again, people will resist it again. But that's what we do, right? I do the same thing when I'm watching like one of my favorite guys, like whether I'm watching Pat McAfee or whether I'm watching Leo Laporte, the moment something changes, even if hey, Pat's desk was at a 43-degree angle. Now it's at a 47-degree angle, and I don't like it. I mean, that's what we do. I do it. We all do it. We all resist change. All right, what's next?
Joe G says, why did Michael Bay give us a post-credit scene at the end of Transformers 5 when he left Transformers just for the studio to come out with Bumblebee and Rise of the Beasts? The post-credit scene is a bombshell. And then no explanation. Will any of the new films address what we saw?
Nope. And Michael Bay made it because he made it for that movie. And this is a great object lesson that just because something happens in a movie or a tag is done, well, that means they have to go and do the next one. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. So no, I think they're pretty much going to pretend those ones don't exist. Listen, Bumblebee really saved the Transformers franchise. Now, whether it did or not, we'll find out when Rise of the Beasts come out. If nobody goes to see Rise of the Beasts, well, I guess maybe Bumblebee didn't save the franchise. Bumblebee was great. I had so much fun with Bumblebee. But, we'll find out. All right, what's next?
Alan Renshaw says, on May 2nd, I will be glued to my phone or computer when Maestro at the Movies tickets go on sale at 10 a.m. I plan to splurge on a box seat and enjoy myself. It is a religious experience for me, and I loved it last year and cannot wait for July.
For those of you who don't know what the Maestro of the Movies is, that is the annual John Williams concert. It's not even one, because now he does it 3 nights. I think he does it Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. That he does at the Hollywood Bowl, where he not only plays a bunch of his most iconic musical pieces, and he is the greatest, most iconic composer of all time, but he'll also select a number of his favorite pieces from classic Hollywood and classic movies, and he'll often bring out special guests. He brought out Kobe one year to read his I don't want to call it a poem, whatever it was, called Dear Basketball, while John Williams composed the orchestra that played along with it. He's brought out Steven Spielberg. He's brought out Julie Andrews. He's brought out, it's always fantastic. If you ever get a chance to go to Maestro of the Movies concert, go to it. It's fantastic.
How does that work? Because I've only been in the box as a guest of someone else before, but if you buy a box, does it guarantee you a certain set of chairs, or do you have to buy individual chairs in a box?
You buy individual chairs in a box.
Okay.
So most of their private box seats have 4 chairs, right? And you can buy 1 of them, you can buy 2 of them, you can buy 3 of them, you can buy 4 of them.
Okay.
If you get like 2 of them, you just got to know that somebody else may
Right,
buy the other
sure.
2 and be sitting in there with you, which Ann and I have done that before,
Yeah.
and it's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
But what we prefer to do is find a couple of friends to go with us, and then we buy all 4 seats in one of the boxes and go watch it, because then the waiters will come, they'll bring you a full dinner to eat in there beforehand and stuff like that. But it's really great, and we don't go to a lot of concerts and shows during the year, so we splurge for the John Williams one, though.
I am glad this is in May this year, so no heat wave.
Yeah. All right, what's next?
Jojo Giraffe says, even as someone who wasn't really a fan of Everything Everywhere All at Once, unpopular opinion I know, I still loved seeing them win all the Oscars. That's how you know it was a good show. And even though I didn't love the movie, I can't wait to see what the Daniels do next.
Well, we were talking the other day about all the stuff that the Daniels could do next. Of course, they've got to deal with Universal, but they're not exclusive to Universal. So it's going to be neat to see that. Robbie, you and I were talking about this. It was a really good show.
It was a good show.
It had all the right feels. Everybody felt good. All the speeches, I can't think of one cringy speech that was given. What do you think set it apart from like previous years?
They concentrate on celebrating the movies. I think that Jimmy Kimmel was an affable host. He wasn't too extreme. People held back on political statements, and it really was a celebration of the films and what everybody was there to celebrate. And I thought it was, I wouldn't say that was spectacular, but it was really nice.
Yeah. Yeah, not the best Oscar, not a top 5 Oscars I've ever seen, but it was just, after a couple of weaker ones, it was a really good show.
Look, Everything Everywhere, all the people that won from that were so happy, and it was such a glorious, and it made a real statement. The fact that A24 made this, financed the film, the fact that Russo brothers were producers, the fact that...
Well, let me address that for a second. You got to know that the Russo brothers had absolutely nothing to do with this movie.
Well, yeah, they didn't accept the award.
Well, no, it wasn't. Yeah, they weren't. The reason they weren't even in the building is they literally did nothing on the film. They passed on the movie, but because the script came to them, they were literally one said, "Well, let's give this to so and so," and just doing that got them a producer's credit. It's just important to know that because some people were writing to me and saying, "John, isn't it amazing that the Russos have an Oscar now?" The Russos do not have an Oscar.
Right.
And the Producers Guild of America do not acknowledge them as producers on the movie, stuff like that, even though they do get their name on the credits.
But it's cool that they used their clout to get that. That's what I mean, to get the movie actually into the hands of people that made it. It's a great Hollywood story. That was my point all the way around. And I think that, there's a lot of people that talk about what kind of a movie it is, that Banshees of Inisherin is more like a Best Picture winner. But you know what? There's, to me, the saga of Everything Everywhere All at Once is what the magic of the movies is all about, however you want to look at it. And it was celebrated at the Oscars. And I think we needed that.
I agree. All right, what's next?
Devin says, hey, crew, I saw that official poster for Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning, and I personally loved it. Very simple yet effective, in my opinion. I'm going to assume there'll be a second trailer attached in a few days.
Well, normally that's the pattern, right? Like when a new, whether it's if Empire Magazine puts out a new exclusive cover or a new poster comes out, it's usually within about a week that a new trailer drops. I would expect that too. Rob, I expect, again, nobody has officially confirmed this at all, so may not, but I expect that next month when we're in Las Vegas at CinemaCon, I think they're going to show us this movie.
I think they'll at least the newly edited version. It's not 3.5 hours.
Yes.
But man, I'd give my left kidney for to see that 3.5 hour cut.
Yeah, and then I wonder how long it'll be. But I don't know. Maybe the fact that they still have to edit it down, maybe that will prevent them from showing it to us at
that could
CinemaCon.
be
I don't
too.
know, but I still believe they're going to be showing us Mission Impossible. All right, what's next?
Chad says, one issue I see with Spider-Man leading the Avengers or becoming a central pillar of the MCU is I don't know if Feige wants to put that much importance on a character Sony could take away at any moment.
You know what? You are absolutely right. And I have that exact same thought. Okay? The counter argument to that, because I'm with you, the counter argument to that is, as long as, I heard somebody say this once, but as long as business is open, go out and do business. Don't worry about what you don't know is going to happen tomorrow. And I think the way that would apply to Kevin Feige is, look, unless you already know, Sony and us have already terminated, we already know we're terminating our agreement and this time, whatever. If you don't know yet, just go out and do business. Make the movies the way you want to make them and don't worry about what you don't know.
Right.
And guess what? If you make him a big central figure and then Marvel and Disney and Sony pull the plug on their deal, okay, deal with it then. Don't compromise your vision now when you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Make the movies you're going to make. If you want to make Spider-Man a central figure, you make Spider-Man a central figure. And then if 2 years from now he can't be a central figure anymore, okay, deal with it then. But conduct business now. Rob, you're the head of Marvel. You're Kevin Feige's right-hand man. What do you advise him to do with Spider-Man at this point?
Well, I don't make him head of the Avengers.
No, I mean, no, not at all.
You know, I think that what you just said, you keep using him. He's been great. Tom Holland, I think, works even better as a secondary character in the movies than he does maybe in his own movies. You know, I think he works great when he's working with people. Like, I love him in Infinity War. I love him. You know, how he's dangling off the rocket ship trying to get inside as it's taking off and he's running out of air. And then when his whole relationship, I love that. But in his own films, I mean, he's still great in his own movies too, but use him however you want. But I don't think he should lead the Avengers.
No, not leading, but just don't make him bumbling anymore. He's growing up.
Yeah,
You know,
that's another
maturity.
thing. I want to see a more skilled Spider-Man.
We got to see that evolution.
His mentor, Tony Stark, is gone, so he needs to step up.
All right, what's next?
Ethan Holgate, 1 and 2. Hi, John. Very happy this tip platform for questions is back. I wanted to mention that I went to see 65 on March 10th, and I was the only guy in the theater. So I'm like, yay, until Jinx, 5 careless teenagers come in, and none stop talking 20 minutes into the film.
Ugh.
I knew they weren't going to shut up, so I got up and left. The manager was happy to give me a refund, and he recognized me as I come so often. He happily gave me free any movie ticket, which was generous, so I got to see 65 the next day. No problem.
Which, by the way, 65 is a movie badly reviewed. The studio didn't have any faith in it. They didn't lift the review embargo till the day the movie came out. I enjoyed it. I had a good time with that movie. It was much better than I thought it was going to be. And again, you know, I've said this before. I guess I'm just lucky. I find that maybe 1 out of every 20 trips I take to the theater, do I have something that's truly disruptive? I'm not saying I saw it out of the corner of my eye, some guy pulled out his phone and looked at his text. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about maybe 1 out of every 20 or 30 times I go to the movies, I have a truly disruptive experience that, whether it's a gang of teenagers that won't shut up the whole time or some guy who took 3 phone calls during the thing. It doesn't happen to me very often at all. So listen, dude, that sucks. That just sucks that you had that experience. But hey, you know what? It was really good to hear that the theater took care of you. That's taking care of your customer. They understand you're there for an experience and your experience got disrupted, so they took care of you. That's all I ask. When something goes bad with a company, listen, bad things happen. All I want to know is, are you going to try to do right by me and make it right? And it sounds like they did that. So kudos to that movie theater manager. All right, what's next?
It's Ethan Holgate again.
Yes.
Hi, John. Also wanted to say I would have sent in a few questions for the Last of Us finale spoiler, but unfortunately couldn't. I'm overwhelmed by how much I bawled my eyes out. It really got to me emotionally. I still can't believe how well they adapted this gem. 9 out of 10 applause.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is a show that is going to win several Emmys. I'm not going to sit here and tell you. The only one I can tell you that they're going to win is Nick Offerman as a special for guest appearance. He's going to win the Emmy for guest appearance. Probably. I mean, we got a lot of television still to come out this year. Whether or not it wins best series or not, I don't know. But I'm going to tell you right now, I take this to the bank. Last of Us will be nominated for best series of the year at the Emmys. It will get nominated. I have zero doubt about that. I'll put $100 on that. That'll do that. It's a fabulous look. We've just spent the last 2.5 months, Rob, talking about how incredible this show is. It just didn't disappoint. They nailed the landing. Love this show. All right, what's next?
Alan Renshaw says, I don't know how many interviews you watch or if you search them out, but the interviews with Pedro and Bella are totally precious.
They're awesome.
They have such good chemistry, and the giggles and daddy memes and making me love them more. Just give Bella the Emmy.
Listen, I don't watch a lot of celebrity interviews because, quite frankly, they bore me. But there are combinations, right, that I just want to see how well they click and the chemistry outside of it because you adore them so much in a show. And you're right. When they do interviews together, it's just delightful to watch. It's just fun watching them together. You know what I mean? And so I think you're 100% right about that, Alan. All right, what's next?
Garden Variety Vagabond says, John, I just saw Ian McShane on Late Night with Seth Meyers talk show, and he is a great interview. Makes me want to go back and see his old British show, Lovejoy. He started as schoolmates with Anthony Hopkins and John Hurt at the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art.
I first got to meet Ian McShane when he was in that Pirates of the Caribbean movie. And I was there at the premiere, and I got to get him for about 5 minutes. And he was just charming and delightful and wonderful. And of course, he's fabulous in Deadwood, and equally as good in the John Wick franchise. I mean, he's just a guy, Rob. When he shows up on screen, you know business is about to pick up. You know you're going to like him in it. I don't know. You got a favorite of his?
I mean, look, the Ian McShane's been in so many different things. But Deadwood, he's so delicious to watch.
He made that show.
And he did make that show. And the way he swears, I mean, he took swearing to an art form that I go back and sometimes I'll just watch random episodes of Deadwood just because.
All right,
So
what's
good.
next?
Garden Variety Vagabond says, John, I watched all of Willow,
Ooh,
but
I
that is
couldn't do
not
it.
due to its quality, but that I should see a therapist for needing to complete what I start. Not surprised. This wasn't even Willow's story. He was secondary in his own show. A waste. Just bad writing.
It was something that the day they announced it, I was like, really? You're going to do a Willow? All right. But the last trailer or two, I thought were quite good. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to check this out. Dude, I tapped out after 2 episodes.
Me too.
I tapped out after 2 episodes. And before anybody starts with this stupid, idiotic, juvenile bullshit, oh, why'd they have to make them lesbians? And blah, blah, blah. Here's the thing. It was just bad writing, because you change the gender of the like you take the lesbian characters and make one a guy and keep one a girl. It wouldn't have improved it at all.
No.
It was just bad writing. It was dull. It was nonsensical. It was just a bad show. And I'm really getting sick and tired of seeing this like insipid, dumb bullshit of like, if something's badly written and badly done, but there's a woman in it, or there's a black character in it, or there's a gay character, they go, oh, well, they cared more about representation than making a good story. No, we see lots and lots of movies and TV shows, the majority of them that don't have any of that stuff, and they're still really bad. It was just a badly done show that, Rob, you weren't here when I was talking about it, but it was a few weeks after I tapped out. I decided I'm just gonna pop on like episode 6 or something. Let me just see where they're at. See maybe if it might motivate me to want to jump back on. And I'm watching like 15 minutes. It was episode 5 or 6. I'm like, oh God, this is this is bad. This is just not good. And I'm not gonna say I'm glad they pulled the plug on it, because if a lot of people enjoyed it and they make another season, I don't have to watch it. So I'm not glad they pulled the plug on it. I'm just not surprised they pulled the plug on it. Now, I know you loved this show. Why?
I hate it. And for the same reasons. You know, I'm always interested. Maybe that's why I love things like Top Gun, and I'm really enjoying Picard season 3. I love Color of Money stories where you catch up with a character years later.
Yeah.
Where are they? And how do they find meaning in their lives as they're older? And with Willow, I got none of that. You know, with the actual character of Willow Ufgood himself. I mean, I want to see this character be the central focus of his story, and he wasn't. Like, I honestly, and I didn't believe, you know, all the court intrigue that we met all those people, the couple, and I'm like, what am I watching? What kind of a show is this? And I don't think every episode it seemed like it was a different tone. I didn't like any of it.
The one kind of bright spot for me was two characters. I can't remember the actor's name. The guy who plays Flash in the Spider-Man movies.
Yeah.
He's also in the new Scream movie. I really like him, and I kind of liked what he was doing in there. And the girl, I've never known her name. You got to forgive me. I've never known her name. But the girl from Solo and from Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I'm starting to like her a lot.
Yeah, her performance.
That's the one kind of bright thing I take away from that show.
Yeah, I thought those performances were fine, but she was, I mean, like you said, it was just badly written, badly conceived. It felt like one of those shows that they didn't really quite understand what it was going to be.
Yeah.
And never.
It's Willow. Let's just do Willow.
Yeah.
Oh, well, what's next?
Lee Crow says, yo, crew, love y'all. Really looking forward to Oppenheimer. Oh, God, me too. Does this fit your wishes for a biopic about someone a bit more crucial to human fates than the usual musician ones? I hope it's great. Sing it with my 72-year-old father.
Yeah, I've been saying that since the movie blog days, that I am far more interested. Everybody knows I'm not, even though I loved Bohemian Rhapsody and Walk the Line,
Purple Rain.
If you're going to do a biography on somebody, a biopic, I prefer it to somebody who really was important to our human experience. Something like, that's why I really love Steven Spielberg's Lincoln, or why I'm so excited about Oppenheimer, or, Queen of Katwe, which is the Lupita Nyong'o film that almost nobody saw, but still. I prefer, on the surface, biopics about people like that than, and I say this as a musician, somebody who just picked up a guitar and sang some lyrics. Now, again, I'm not taking away from the impact as an art, like movies, the art makes, yeah, absolutely. And that's why I really love Fabelmans, a semi-biographical story about the youth of Steve. Yeah, again, but I get more excited, Rob, about stories about these kinds of people who actually shaped and helped steer the direction of us as a society, or as us as a species even. I don't know. What do you think about that?
Well, I think you're absolutely right. But again, it's the story that's being told. My problem with musical biopics is usually the story is very similar.
Oh, yes.
A talented musician becomes famous, wealth and the trappings of fame get to them. They become drug addicts or alcoholics or something. They need to be rescued by someone. They find true love and then they die.
Now, you could have just described Walk the Line, Rocket Man, or Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yep.
I mean, it fits all of them. And it's generally that same pattern with these.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing about a story like Oppenheimer is it has a bigger meaning. The idea that the philosophical underpinnings of that is just because we can do a thing, should we do a thing? And what happens when you're a man that fundamentally changes the structure of human existence by making it possible to destroy all life on Earth? these are movies that have a little bit more going on than just telling the story of the man himself.
All right, what's next?
That's why we all love the true story of Joe Dirt.
That's right. Josh Pollard says, it's crazy to think this year we'll have films from Christopher Nolan, Martin Scorsese, David Fincher, Villeneuve, and Gerwig. Okay, there's 28 Oscar nominations between those 5, 14 of which are Scorsese's, and only one was a win.
I mean, listen, we have talked a lot about how exciting of a period of time we are in right now. And like this month, just the month of March, like we've already had Creed, we've had Scream 6, I got Shazam coming out tonight, we still have John Wick, we got Dungeons and Dragons. Although, what's the official release date for Dungeons and Dragons? Is that March release or is that official?
I think it's the 31st.
It's 30, okay, so it is a March release. We're seeing it on Sunday. But this is like, it makes you remember, Rob, like we have just gone through 2.5, 3 years of not having a month like this.
No.
And now being able to look forward and really feel and appreciate this, like, oh yeah, we can have a year where we have films from Spielberg and Scorsese and pretty soon it sounds like we're going to get one again from Quentin Tarantino, and we can have Gerwig, and we can have movies from Villeneuve. And it's like, yeah, this is the way it's supposed to be, and it feels good.
I just love that in this list, if you think about it, you're getting Killer of the Flower Moon.
Yeah.
You're getting The Killer from Fincher. You're getting Dune 2, and then you're getting Barbie.
You know what's crazy to me, though? I have zero interest in this Barbie movie. I am amazed how excited so many people are for this.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of people really excited for this.
It's going to be a huge hit.
It probably will be. By the way,
So-
a good Canadian kid, Simu Lu's in that as well. All right, what's next?
Boyd says, ahoy, I just want to say to Rob, congratulations on the 20th anniversary of Agent
There you
Cody
go.
Banks.
20th
I
anniversary
truly
of
love
Agent
that
Cody
movie when I
Banks.
found it as a kid. It made me feel cool, like I was watching something adult. As funny as that sounds, I hope you're well. You know, John, Ashley Edward Miller, who's in Movie Trailers, A Love Story,
Yes, he is.
wrote that movie. He was a co-writer
right.
of that film, and that was their first feature before they wrote Thor and X-Men First Class. That was his-
And just again to point out, Rob's name does not fly by with 15 other producers' names. Rob has a single screen credit. Robert Meyer Burnett on the screen.
It's true.
Agent
It's
Cody
pretty
Banks.
funny. And Jason Alexander from Seinfeld, he shares his credit on that too.
There you go.
Not me.
All right, what's next?
T-Bone, 1 of 2. Late Doctor Strange 2 critique. I saw the Illuminati twist less as throwing the fans a bone and just another Ralph Boner stunt casting. Great character arc for Wanda, but all that just to devolve into Terminator? Fair to call Disney out for stunt casting or stringing along fans because Disney wasn't throwing away all of their Phase 4 plans when the Fox buy was announced. Hashtag share price over quality.
Here's the thing, though. I did not like Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness as much as the first Doctor Strange movie. I had a good time with it. Like, I liked the movie,
Yeah.
and it was quite successful. It made over $900 million at the box office. All that's great. I will say, though, that, you know me, I'm always looking for a narrative purpose or function in what you're doing. In defense of the Illuminati stuff in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, I don't think when she's fighting Strange one-on-one, when she's fighting all the various sorcerers at Carmitage, I don't think any of that conveyed to the audience how nearly unstoppable Wanda Maximoff was until she literally fought Black Bolt, Professor Xavier, that universe's Captain Marvel, Captain Carter, and Mr. Fantastic, and wiped them all out. It's that moment in the movie. But they had to do so without compromising the rest of the MCU. So don't worry, it's all these characters from Earth 721-B56. So, but narratively, for me, remember we were talking a little bit ago, Rob, about how sometimes you need to make the audience feel something, not just know something.
Yes.
And for me, like watching her, we already knew she's incredibly powerful, but watching her step into that arena and ripping through these very powerful characters, to me, that did something for me as an audience member and how I looked at the character. So I, again, in defense of the movie, I felt a little bit of narrative purpose for that. What did you feel about that scene?
You know what? That sequence, I felt that it was one after another. I would love to have seen a more coordinated attack amongst the Illuminati against her. So it would have been more like the beginning of X-Men Days of Future Past, where you're watching the various X-Men coordinate an attack against those Sentinels. Just because it seemed like, well, one person's defeated, here comes somebody else, and here comes somebody else. And I think I would have just made it more of a meal out of that action scene. But I agree with you. I mean, once you see how she rips through these characters, you see how formidable she is. I just would have made it to me, it made the Illuminati look kind of dumb. It's like they should have ganged up, and you should have made it more of a fair fight. Like they might have defeated her. Like and then when she finally defeated them, the audience would have been more breathless. I mean, in a way, it was just she just stood up and killed them. I never felt anything from that scene. I wanted to.
All right. We got time for one more. What's our last one today?
Ooh, this is a good one. Comes from Anonymous. I only recently discovered some classic Japanese films like Harakiri Yojimbo. Startling to see Kurosawa's influences everywhere, especially in Star Wars. I was wondering if you guys had any favorites in the genre for me to check out.
By the way, I have not seen what was that second one?
Harakiri.
I'm not familiar with that one.
I've not seen that either. I've seen the others. I mean, Yojimbo
Igaru is like maybe his best film.
Yeah, I mean, and of course remade with Bill Nye, who was up for the Academy Award playing that character.
Yeah, for those of you who did not know, the Bill Nye, who was just up for Best Actor at the Academy Awards, that is a remake of that Kurosawa classic.
Yes, and I think if you haven't, a Japanese movie, a Kurosawa movie, everybody needs to see is Rashomon. Mm-hmm. And Rashomon is a film. What's really great about Rashomon, it bears a sort of a resemblance to The Last Duel that Ben Affleck and Matt Damon wrote, because you see a certain incident from various points of view. And it's a really great movie, and it's a really interesting piece of cinema. Also, Woman of the Dunes is another Japanese movie you should watch. And you didn't mention Seven Samurai. I mean, I know
that's the most well-known. That's the most well-known.
And Yojimbo is where the Man with No Name movies started with Fistful of Dollars.
Right.
That's why when you say I've seen them. But you're going to love going through that period. And you know what? I'll tell you something. There's a new Japanese movie. I want to say it came out in 2016, maybe, called The World of Kaneko. It's much more Quentin Tarantino-esque, but watch that. I love that.
All right, guys, and that'll do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show. A big special thank you to all you guys who sent in those questions. By the way, if you did send in questions, you didn't see them answered yet, hold on. We're going to pick those up on a open mic mailbag that we're going to do, where we will pick right up where we left off with those questions. So feel free to continue to send questions in, and if it doesn't get answered there, will be answered on tomorrow's episode of the John Campea Show. So constant stream of availability for you guys to send in your comments, questions, thoughts, and opinions. So again, thank you to all of you guys who did send them in, because number one, you gave us great fun things to talk about. Number two, you supported this channel as you did it, and all of us involved with the show. Thank you guys so very much for that support. Guys, don't forget to come on back and join us for tomorrow's episode of the John Campea Show. Again, keep your guys' eyes open for an open mic / mailbag a little bit later tonight. Also, keep your eyes open for my Shazam Fury of the Gods right out of the theater reaction. Ray, me, and Ann are going to go see it. I'm clearly all ready for this movie, so keep your guys' eyes open for that. So, for Ray, Aura, Taylor, we got Jonathan running the show, celebrating the 20th anniversary of Agent Cody Banks, writer, director, producer, Robert Meyer Burnett. My name's John Campea. Thanks a lot for being here, my friends. And until next time, Shazam. The Fury of Puss. Shazscript.
Wow, dude. Wow.
Oh my God, that's gold.